There we go. I call this regular meeting of the Village of Villa Park Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Roll call, Calvert, Hassler,
Here.
Hofstra, Jackson, Lemieux,
Here.
Ludke,
Here.
Romano, Schlinsky.
Here.
I too am present. With that, we have a quorum. So, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 8th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission?
So moved.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second
Second.
to my left. Right, any questions, comments, amendments to the minutes? Okay. A motion to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Before we get started, just talk about how how the process will work. I'm gonna swear everybody in at once, and then that's gonna speak on an agenda item in one of the hearings. And then we will start with presentation of the staff, presentation of petitioner if you have one. Then we'll take public comment on the agenda item, and then questions from the commission, and then we'll move into discussion and have a motion tonight, most likely, either to vote or to continue, depending on how things go. So anyone wishing to speak on our first item, our only item of business, which is PZ 2506-734 South Villa Avenue, variation for residential accessory structure maximum size. I'd ask that you stand now, raise your right hand, and we'll get everybody sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in these proceedings is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, staff, whenever you're ready,
Thank you. Tonight we have a application for a variation at 734 South Villa for an application of a gazebo that is larger than 200 square feet. I'll go over a summary of their request, allow for any comments by the petitioner, allow for the commission to make any clarifying questions. We'll hold a public hearing, return for commission discussion and motion if appropriate. The petitioner applied for a patio permit in March of 2022 for a patio that's 32 feet by 14 feet. On inspection of that patio in April of 2022, footings for a gazebo were found in the patio, and the petitioner was told to apply for a gazebo permit at that time. As of July of 2023, a gazebo permit hadn't been applied for, and a violation notice was sent to the petitioner. A gazebo permit was applied for in February of 2025 and was denied due to the gazebo size being 248.2 square feet, where 200 square feet is permitted. And that would be a variation from section 6.10.2, table 6-2. On the screen, you can see the site plan. The patio is shown in yellow, and then the gazebo on top of it shown in red. This is a copy of their patio permit, which was for that patio in their rear yard. On the screen are the standards for consideration of a variation, review and approval criteria. We will hold a public hearing allowing anyone in the audience to speak. And then staff has provided a sample motion if the commission feels it is appropriate. And with that, staff can answer any questions.
Okay. Does the petitioner have a presentation this evening or anything they want to say? If so, just please come up here, state your name for the record, and we just note that we are on video, so try to speak in the mic the best you can.
Yes, thank you. My name is Basil Weaver. This is my wife Melinda. We live at 734 South Villa. I think there's just a couple of comments I'd like to make on this, just to clarify. I think just the two main points is that when we first started this project, we live in that part of Villa Park where the lots are very deep. There's big areas back there. You can see from some of the aerial photos. Not only is there a lot of room in our backyard, but we're surrounded by a huge, sort of open space that's shared between all of our neighbors in the back. I think that used to be Parkway land or parkland back in the day and was eventually deeded over. So there's a big area back there. We always wanted to put something back there, so we would use that space a little bit. So we came up with this project. We wanted to put a patio and a pergola back there. So the first thing we did was we selected a pergola and we purchased it. It was a kit. And we were not aware, I know ignorance is not a great excuse, but we were not aware that there was a space constraint on that. And we got the kit first because we wanted to be sure to have the specific measurements and specs of the pergola so we could put the patio and the footings at the right place. So we first had the kit, then we applied for the permit for the patio and the footings, and that went on, pretty well. We got all that installed. We hired a contractor. We submitted our invoice with the permit. All of that was detailed in the invoice, and construction went off fairly straightforward. It turned out great. And after we were complete, after we had built the patio and poured the footings, the first moment where we knew we had an issue was our inspector asked us, "What are you going to build on these footings?" And we said, "We're going to build a pergola on these footings." And the inspector made a comment of, given where these are, it may be bigger than code allows. So that was the first time we knew about that. So then over the next couple of days, we started to do our research, read the code. We knew we had, that we were not going to be able to comply with the code. So we had we couldn't move the footings. So, long story short, we assembled that structure there, and that was our mistake. And so since then, we've been trying to, sort of follow this long road to try to make it right, get the permit. And of course, this is all part of that process. So I think a couple of comments on the measurements of the pergola. I think it's been interesting to see there's definitely a couple different ways to measure the pergola. From corner post to corner post, it's 205 square feet. And I have a letter from Mark McLaughlin's office in the Village Hall stating 205 square feet. That's corner post to corner post. And you'll see in the pictures, there's a very small little overhang of the roof, outside of the main rectangular structure where the big wood beams are. There's a small roof overhang. And I think the requested square footage includes the roof overhang. I'm not sure if that's the proper way to do it or not. I always thought of it as 205 square feet, which means we're basically 3 inches too wide. So if we were 3 inches skinnier, I would consider it to be 200, but I'm not sure I always thought that was the proper way to measure the square footage. But if you include the small roof overhang, that's what gets you to almost 240 square feet. And that's reflected here. So I just wanted to make that clear. And just that I think our other circumstance is, we just have a lot of room back there. We're surrounded by a 6-foot privacy fence. It's bolted into the concrete footing, so we feel that it's beautiful. We love it. We want to keep it. We feel it's safe, secure, and it's been back there for the last couple of years and survived lots of weather and storms. We feel it's a very good asset for our family. We love it. So, and so that's just our general comments around it. I think the other, we did, just for clarification, we do value village codes. We weren't trying to go around village codes. We realize that they exist for good reasons, to ensure safety and functionality of the village and all the people who live and work here, to make the village more aesthetically pleasing, to maintain property values, respecting our own property and our neighbors' properties with these codes, and then to minimize environmental impact. And the reason we're here asking, for this variation is, I think approving this variation, doesn't really violate any of those themes that we feel that is why all these codes exist and why they're important. Yes, it is not in compliance, but I think at the same time, there's circumstances that would say we feel it's appropriate on the property and sort of fits the space that's back there. And yeah, if we knew everything we knew today and we could go back, we'd have done it a lot differently. But unfortunately we didn't. And so here we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this agenda item? Yeah, so just come up and if you need to adjust the mic up or down, feel free.
Yeah, I better. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I've been a neighbor, I live directly to the north of the Weavers. My name is Phyllis Cooper, and they've been there 20 years. And I have absolutely no complaints about their gazebo. You can barely see it from my house, and they never have any rowdy, noisy of parties going on. They're very, very, very considerate, and I don't see where making them take it down or making it that much smaller is going to make a big difference.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So you're at 7:30?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this item? Okay. Any questions from the commission for either?
I would love some clarity on the square footage discrepancy between the petitioner and from staff. I want to understand that nuance that's happening there.
Sure. So it sounds like the 205 is measuring from the post. That's actually what touches grade. When we created the 248.2, that is to the outer extents of the roof.
Okay.
Just to request to publish it, we always want to err on the side of the largest variation that could be measured. So that's why we went with the 248.2. If it is, 205, that's fine. I think the discrepancy is just the outer extents of the roof, which covers the whole area, versus going to the inside post. I'm not sure if we had in the information submitted with the variation, the dimensions of the post area, which is why we defaulted to the roof area.
Great, that's helpful. A permit was applied for the gazebo
Yes.
earlier this year, right?
Yes, and I don't know if we had those post dimensions.
Yeah, so with the first submission of information,
Yep.
that was when we got the first drawing from the measurements from the inside of the post. On later submissions, we got the manufacturer specs, which is where we came up with the 248.
And that was to the outer eve line of
the
the
outer edges.
perimeter. Okay. Got it. Okay. Does the 205 corroborate jive with the document that you received?
Yes,
into?
I
Okay.
believe that was in the original submission, yes.
And the recommendation that we're dealing with here is because we don't want to go, it being 205, get the variance, and then it's actually 206, and then we're out of compliance, and we're just
Correct.
giving ourselves,
Yes. We
not
actually
building a
published-
watch on a
Right.
350 plot. Yes, okay,
Right, we
got
actually
it.
published for 250, just to give ourselves even a little
Cover
bit
the
more.
base, yeah, right.
Yes.
When they get the deeper gutters out there, and then that could, yeah, right.
Rather than be covered for a variation.
Understood,
and
yes,
be
okay.
under
That's
it,
helpful.
Under what we published and would potentially be approved, just so we don't have to come back to discuss it further at a later date.
With our code, accessories, Article 6, right? That's that, and then the whole, our, 'cause that was recently done, correct? That, we updated that, how we sort of sizes and allowances of the various accessory structures. That was maybe within the past year and a half or so, in terms of those numbers?
A portion of it that was redone.
Yeah.
But I do not think any of those changes included this line item of the gazebo. There were some changes to this section in 2024.
But the line item for gazebos was 200 square feet, that's our limit, correct? Yeah. Is there any language that defines what the gazebo parameters are? Does it say the outer edge? Does it say what? I would think there's nothing in our code that says anything about eaves, even like on a building, like a building or a shed or whatever. It's always sort of the building footprint. So it seems like the columns would be the sort of controlling dimension that we would be concerned with, whether they put a,
Usually it is
6
the
inch?
foundation is what we measure to.
okay. Right. So the columns would be then the accurate dimension, okay, got it. Got it. So as much as we're asking for an extra 50, the fact of the matter is, it seems like we're only over 5, based on the definition of what the
Correct.
area should be, or could be.
Yes.
It would sound like the 205 square feet would be the usable space.
Within the bound
within
area of the
within
columns.
bound. Yes,
Yeah. That's how I understand it.
yes.
Michelle,
Yes, so
with all of us being cognizant that neither you nor Rachel were here back in 2022, in addition to Mark not being on staff in 2022, is there anything in any staff notes from your predecessors that give any indication or reflect any additional conversation around 2022 about, or subsequent to the initial inspection, noting the footings for the gazebo and
So I went
any
back-
requirements that were indicated back at that time?
So I went back and looked and talked to the inspector, one of the inspectors who was out on inspection. On the right side of the screen is the picture from the pre-pour, so you can see that the footings were shown there. The invoice that was submitted as part of the permit submission in 2022 noted footings, but not the spread or dimensions. Unfortunately, those should have been shown, on their permit drawing. This was the original permit drawing, which shows the patio, but no locations of those footings. So unfortunately, it would have been nice to have those footings shown, and we would have known that that was the future plan, to put a gazebo on the patio. It was caught on the pre-pour, which I think was when, we asked, like, what are these footings for? And kind of was thinking that this may be something that's too large. But yes, unfortunately, we can't change that back
No,
today in
exactly.
No.
2022.
Just asking for
Yeah,
any additional
yeah.
information that may have been available.
at that point, the maximum allowed area might have been smaller, because I believe we increased that. But I can't, without going back through a history of ordinances, I don't know for sure. But
But that being said, Jason, I have to kind of assume that even if the gazebo size was smaller at that time, the patio that it now sits on was approved without any variation.
Correct.
Right.
The patio size was not of concern. The lot coverage here, they're well under what they could have.
Absolutely.
So that was not a concern.
yeah. And Eric, to answer your question about measurements, I think the closest we have is a definition of building footprint.
Right.
In which case, it says building footprint is measured as the horizontal area on a lot that is covered by the subject building, excluding open steps and terraces, cornices, and roof overhangs that do not project more than 24 inches.
There you have it.
So that's probably the closest to a definition we would have for the measurement of a gazebo.
Right.
Yeah.
So the column dimension would be the,
Yeah, the supports.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's encouraging. Given that, just out of curiosity, I know that the code allows, this is a direct question to you guys, this has nothing to do with this particular application, but we have administrative adjustment sort of available to us, and I know there's like percentages, and I don't know if that has to do with like setbacks, I don't know what qualifies in those what sort of meets?
So the things that covers are lot area, lot width, setbacks, off-street parking spaces, bicycle parking spaces, and adjustments to the MX district. So it would not
Got it,
cover
yeah, that wouldn't, this wouldn't sort of,
area of accessory structures.
So something for staff to consider would be, is there a percentage or a square footage threshold for these types of gazebos, sheds, et cetera, that could be an administrative adjustment, especially given, a site like this where you're not talking about going over lot coverage. I don't know exactly what that threshold or language would be, but something to consider.
We'd be happy to look into that.
Yeah. Because we do know that, with the kits, you have various shapes and sizes, and some may have columns closer to the middle, some may have columns at the edge,
but
and
it
there's
could
just
be
going to be a wiggle room, and
and it could even be a column spacing that's 20 by 10, right? And the columns themselves are, but then you've got an extra 2.5 inches on either side, and then you've got yourself an extra 5 inches, right? And then,
got yourself 205 square feet.
yeah, right? You have 200, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Something that gives just a little bit of wiggle room for variances in terms of the potential kit designs and minor changes in the market. Any other questions, comments?
I really don't have any. No.
No.
Really? All right.
No, if we were to approve or recommend approval, would we recommend 200 square foot to 205?
The staff has indicated that they would want to go to the 250, just so
Okay.
there's no
Okay,
question about whether the existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given that it's a pre-kit or a prefab kit, I don't imagine that the petitioners, even if it was deemed 205, would want to go an extra 45
Yeah.
in expansion.
Okay, before we move into commission discussion and a motion, any closing comments from the petitioner? Okay, that's fine. All right. Any discussion? And if not, then,
No, I think the clarity about the dimensions really sort of helped clarify all this for me.
yeah.
Agreed, yep.
Yeah. My only comment generally is that, the ordinances do exist for a reason, and this one's one of those that's on the edge, though at the time, I think the square footage might have been smaller when you initially built this, so a
I
variation.
don't know, I think Michelle so she went back, and I don't think that was a line item that was touched.
I don't know for sure. I
Oh.
know that I cannot say. It doesn't show
Yeah, the online ordinance isn't really good about showing when,
that one.
History.
It doesn't include a date at the bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So I'd
got
have
it.
to do some digging to find out what.
I-
it is.
it's possible that it changed. I mean, I know we did amendments with Consuelo, we
Few
did
times.
amendments with Ellen.
Yeah.
And we've done amendments since Mark's been here, so I don't know. But at one point, it was, I think, 100 square.
Yeah,
feet.
and then I think when we were making those editing changes to the text, I remember we were sort of doing some quick online research for these kits, and we were noticing somewhere like at 192 square feet that you could buy from, out of the box
Yeah.
at Home Depot or something, and like, okay, we'll make it 200 and call it a day.
Yeah, so that would be my only comment.
Yeah.
Just not to
No, I
drag
understand what you're
things out any
saying.
farther.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, my only comment is that I don't want to get into a hardship conversation on this. I do recognize that this is a unique situation in which the gazebo is built already upon the patio. And I think upon looking at the code and going through the accessory structures list, the, 200 square feet maximum, I would interpret that as, or I do interpret that as if it was a standalone structure, right? It's its own concrete pad that doesn't exist on already built patio. So I do think that there is a uniqueness to this petition with the structure itself.
I mean, also like the square footage numbers and those, they don't necessarily, they're designed for a typical 50 by 185-ish lot. This lot's
It's
58
very
by
deep, yes.
208, I think.
50 by 297.
It's actually 58 by 207
Oh, 58.
According to
Yeah,
the-
there it is.
survey. So it's considerably larger than,
295.
295.
oh,
2.4.
Yeah,
it's even
it's-
bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It jogs on the south end.
Yeah, I was looking at the 207 number on the south end, but that's a little jog. So, yeah, that's
It's a huge.
almost twice the size of an average
Right.
village lot. So, it doesn't, the ordinance as written doesn't necessarily envision a lot of that size with that much open space.
Correct.
Okay, there's no other discussion, then I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of PZ 2506 for a variation from section 6.10.2, table 6-2, for the maximum size of a gazebo to be expanded from 200 square feet to 250 square feet, as depicted in Exhibit A for 734 South Villa Avenue.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second,
A second from trustee Ludke, or Commissioner Ludke?
yeah,
Elevated
no,
you
don't
trustee.
accuse me
Sorry
of
about
being in a
that.
different position.
My fault. All right, any questions, comments on the motion to approve? Okay, roll call, Hassler,
Yes.
Lemieux,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Shalinski.
Yes.
I too vote yes. With that, our recommendation passes to the village board, and they have the final say on the matter. Good luck. All right, public comments on non-agenda items.
Good evening, Joel Morey, 309 East Maple Street. I've previously spoken to this commission on the project that is designated as the Villa Avenue Improvement Projects between North Avenue, and at that previous time, it was only to St. Charles Road. So I'm here to provide information so that you guys can be informed of the status of the situation. So recently, the project was extended to go from North Avenue past St. Charles to Wildwood. When I previously appeared here, it was on behalf of the, as a commissioner on the Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee, I was advocating for an improved design that would incorporate a protected bike path on the east side of Villa from Thomas Street in Elmhurst to where it cuts back over at 2nd Street north of the DuPage Materials plant. I thought it was a flawed design. Others and I have spoken about it. Keeping it on the west side causes it to cross 4 active streets, Maple, Beach, Plymouth, and Vermont. Now we have the new business of Rose Paving. It would have to cross their perimeter. Also would require the removal of mature parkway trees and repositioning of fire hydrants. In the process of getting output, reaching out to the public, I had gone over to the path on Sunday just to take an informal poll to find out if trail users would prefer not having to cross Villa twice with the lack of protection of anything other than those high visibility flashing beacons, which cause a lot of confusion for motorists. And residents on that street, which is East 2nd Street, brought to my attention that there was a new construction project that the owner of the DuPage Materials, which is K5 Asphalt, had built a high-strength ramp out of their property onto East Second Street, right at the entrance of the trail where it goes back into the trail system where it's heavily wooded, causing a conflict potentially for trail users. Well, East Second Street at that location is a township road. And as of this May, I have become a York Township Commissioner, a trustee. So I'm taking excessive interest in this because not only advocating for improved bike paths, but to keep our riders safe. Because the project was extended to Wildwood, I've been in discussions with Public Works Director Gura and Kevin Mantles that even although the original project had a public meeting, generally they have two, we should consider a redesign of the project and add in a second meeting so that we can get more information from the public. Because I believe the project, as just checked, is still in planning stage. And if we're going to do it, we should do it right the first time. Not having to come back like they did on the Maple Avenue improvement projects, not putting sidewalks in when all the construction equipment was there between Illinois and Summit, and now we're going back and putting it in, ripping up sod that we've already placed, possibly damaging the road. But the reason it's more important for you folks is that the Villa Avenue project is a joint project with the city of Elmhurst. Villa Park has the lead on the design and the implementation, and Elmhurst is reimbursing the project at a percentage of the cost. Well, the significant strength of that approach leads us to believe that they may be using that ramp to bypass the congestion on Route 83, even though they have a signaled access road with protected left turn lanes, that anybody coming out of the driveway there can go back and forth from the east to the west and back without any conflicts. It sets the signals on 83. But because of the increased congestion on 83, we think that they want to use that as a better option for them. Well, our road, Second Street, is not rated for those types of vehicles. It's not rated for cement mixers and tractor trailer dump trucks bringing in broken, concrete and asphalt for repurposing. I believe the road is only rated for 5 tons. Our highway department is in the process of erecting weight limit signs at that road, and we will be in discussions with the sheriff to enforce that. However, should they be victorious in being able to win access to that road, because the previous administration issued a permit. We haven't yet found it, but I do have a copy
For
of
this apron.
for that apron. It's like kind of concrete thickness that you would see on an interstate highway. And the fact is that the county did issue a permit on March 21st. The Building and Zoning Department issued a permit as for a commercial accessory structure. So they're the proper entity to issue the permit. It's unincorporated. If York Township approved it. But the risk to the trail users, people coming out of the wooded area and not being prepared to stop for a truck that pulls out in front of them,
Or the other way around.
or the other way around. And we just don't, and we got complaints now. They're Villa Park residents, technically, because they have a Villa Park address. They had a natural barrier there where they took down a major portion of the tree line, the perimeter on their property. We have pictures from before and after. There's complaints of dust, noise. One of the residents has breathing issues. Right now, they've got heavy equipment parked on the inside at the top of the driveway and temporary fencing at the bottom. We're assuming that it's only because they're waiting for the concrete to cure. However, we have been in discussions. Robert Wagner, who is also a commissioner on the Bike Pedestrian Transit Subcommittee, has been exchanging emails with the county department that issued the permit, manager Rivas. They're all brought into the conversation. Director Gura, Kevin Mantles. I was at the Elmhurst presentation Monday night of their Cricket Creek project, where they're going to put a pedestrian bridge over 83 between Elmhurst and, for North Avenue and Lake Street. And even though they had just also become aware of it, and they're not happy with that either, because it's going to exit onto Villa.
Yeah.
Is planning and design ready to accommodate significant truck traffic to bypass Route 83 when they put that design in? Do we want that type of operation going through the community? We've made considerations for Rose Haven because their trucks are mostly light-duty trucks. But now we're talking about a completely different animal. So as a township trustee, I plan to keep you folks informed, especially on the Bike and Pedestrian Transit Subcommittee. We are having an agenda item on our meeting this month on June 26th, and we'll be discussing the protected trail on the east side. But this new item came to our attention, so we wanted to bring it to your attention at this time.
So are you revisiting the whole design of Villa then, or one more open meeting to sort of discuss that? Is that where that's the hope?
The hope is to have a second meeting
Yeah. Mhm.
with a new design
Yeah.
that takes into consideration the extension from St. Charles to Wildwood
Yeah.
and the new issues of
That have been brought to light.
the access coming, coming off of that K5 Materials property, and the consideration of a protected bike lane for trail for the users, because currently that seems to be the preferred option to just avoid conflicts with pedestrians and vehicles.
Yeah, so
Stands to reason.
I would say that, as a private citizen, not a commissioner up here, and a planner and a cyclist, I did advocate at the time for the trail to be, the path, trail, whatever it was to be on the east side. That made the most sense to me, because crossing Villa twice, and potentially multiple times, depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from Villa Park, you could cross it down south, then have to cross it again, and then have to cross it again. And also, I did see the K5 entrance that you're talking about on a ride a week or two ago. It could not be in a worse location for visibility. It's literally right at the trailhead on 2nd Avenue. I'm appalled that the county approved it, honestly. There's no consideration, and I don't know long-term, what village staff's view will be for that, but I'm sure there are ways that if the county doesn't do anything and the township can't do anything, there may be ways for Villa Park as a village to manage what vehicles can access Villa Avenue from there.
That would be
Whether it's a weight
appreciated.
limit, it's not my job to sort that out, but those may be considerations that could be made.
Well, I'm a resident on Maple Street, and it is very hard to just pull out into the traffic when you have a vehicle because of the traffic coming over the railroad crossing heading southbound. It's commonly used as a bypass for Route 83 Monday through Friday. And the fact is that if you review the board meeting on Monday, there was considerable complaints. And maybe it wasn't the board meeting. I may be getting my meetings mixed up. It might have been the coffee with the board on Saturday. But there was a significant amount of complaints about traffic on Villa Avenue, blowing stop signs, noisy vehicles, high rates of speed. And it was probably coffee with the board.
Yeah.
Now that I can think
Well,
about
yeah,
it.
and there is
It was the board meeting on Monday, and they were talking about at Villa and Madison specifically, that was the area further south, but
That is correct.
Yeah.
nothing is off
I think
limits on
that's
that
people
road.
jumping off of 83 to avoid the construction traffic and cutting through there. Yeah, so I really do appreciate those comments and for bringing it to us. Our attention, I know you've kept us updated in the past. And you said your meeting's June 26th?
That is correct.
Okay.
Right here at 6 p.m.
Okay, I'll try to attend if I'm able. I appreciate that a lot.
Yes. And I went to the bike race on Saturday in Elmhurst, and I spoke to a number of advocacy organizations since then. And there is a general desire for people to not be put at risk
Yeah.
crossing that road. So, twice.
Yeah, that was a great day, wasn't it, over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times.
Elmhurst Cycling Classic.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yep,
I'll let you
thank
guys
you.
consider and appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any discussion items from staff this evening? Nothing, good. I didn't mean that like that. It came out all wrong. Any staff, or any commissioner comments? Try to elevate you guys to staff. Trustees,
Seriously, even trustee, staff, what are we?
I could use some more staff.
That's not a promotion.
No. No,
any
nothing from our,
discussions or reports this evening? All right, motion to adjourn,
so moved.
second.
I can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Concert in the park.
Yeah, it's almost over.
Almost over, yeah.